Neil Treacy. I don't know how to segue from that. Neil, how are you?
Not too bad, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. This is the Tight-5. It's welcome back because, you know, we're in the midst of a Six Nations campaign, as weird and all as that sounds. What's your level of expectation, before we get into the details of what you want to talk about, what's your level of expectation that Ireland can actually win this game at the weekend?
I think they've a very good chance. Well, like very, very good chance. I think they're well capable of winning it. I think the problem is that if they are to go and win it with the bonus point that they need, it needs to be exactly the type of game that they don't really play, and that you wouldn't really play going to play away to France. Like, if Ireland are to win with a bonus point, I can't see it being a 28 or a 35-10 performance. If they were to do it, it would have to be just because of how good France are. It would have to be a case of a 35 or a 28 to like 30 or 27 or something like that. It would have to be a complete shootout, and the likelihood of Ireland getting into a shootout with France is pretty slim. So, like, I've listed out all these things here. We're talking about the topics we're going to get through. The 5 pointers I have here are things that Ireland are going to be doing to win the game.
Okay.
But if they are to be doing these things, they're not necessarily like, they're probably not things that are going to lend themselves to a shootout of a game, and probably for Ireland to actually win with a bonus point.
So you're talking that if we do all these things, we might win 12-9, or maybe.
I'll give us 16 or 17 points, sure.
Okay, so one try and 4 penalties, and
yeah, like a well thought out win away from home in the Six Nations.
I think we'd all take that. I think
I think if that happened and the dust settles and England pip us by 25, 30 points on the differential if they blow out Italy, like, you'll come back from it and you go, it's a pity we didn't win the Six Nations, but look, it was a solid start. It was okay.
Exactly, we didn't deserve to. I think if Andy Farrell presides over a 3-0 win at the weekend, he is going to be a happy man.
Pretty much, I think, yeah.
Right, so what do you want to talk to us about?
First one, we're going to start with about controlling the pace of the game, because I think that's the first one that's going to be absolutely crucial for taking on France, just because the way they play. And if you look at the way France played against Wales, or actually indeed the way Wales played against France on Saturday night as well, it probably shows a lot, because for much of the first half anyway, Wales did control the game. They were able to slow things down a little bit more, and that's where they actually did make their headway. It was only really as the second half wore on that France actually just completely started to pull away from them and tear them apart. And the big thing about that is someone like Antoine Dupont, the French scrum half, he's just a complete live wire. He's just so electric at the base of a rock, and the speed at which he gets the ball away, not just the speed of a pass, but just how eager he is to get the ball out of a ruck as quick as possible. Like, the criticism a lot of people would have on Conor Murray is that he probably spends a little bit too much time surveying the scene when he gets there. With Dupont, it's just complete natural instincts, and he's getting the ball out to his first receiver as soon as possible. So I think what Ireland are going to have to do, and it's something they did quite well against Italy as well, so it's more of a case of building on something they did well, is trying to control that pace and slowing down the ball at the ruck as much as they can. Probably one of the good things from the weekend, you saw the likes of Tyke Byrne, Andrew Porter, and all three across that back row of Will Connors, Caelan Doris and CJ Stander, all at various stages during the game, were very, very impressive with their jackling technique and their ability to get in over the ball. And they're going to have to be at that again this Saturday if Ireland are going to want to slow down that ball. And also as well, they're going to have to play probably on the borders of legality as well. And if it's Wayne Barnes who's reffing, if he gets cleared with his COVID-19, they're going to have to be able to judge the referee and know how to play him correctly, because they are just going to have to slow down that ball right down, completely frustrate France, so that they're going to be able to pack their defence and be ready for Dupont.
When you talk about slowing down the ball at the ruck, Neil, how much of a risky tactic is that? Do you have to commit bodies that could be used elsewhere in the defensive line?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why it is very, very risky, because you are playing it's a risk reward thing, because you might have to commit 2-3 players into a ruck, and that's probably 2 players extra that you're not going to have in the defensive line. So I think they're going to have to pick their moments and be really, really decisive and accurate, that when they are actually going in to really attack for the ball, it's going to have to be a time when they actually get it. They can't be going into too many rucks and just getting a hand in there. I think as soon as the ball is probably lost, they can get rid of a body or two. And like, I think they can still keep someone like maybe one of the bigger second rows, like a James Ryan or a Tyke-Byrne, just to kind of be a little bit of a nuisance, even if the ball is lost. Not necessarily trying to go and get your hands in on top of it, because at that stage, it's a lost cause. But more just kind of rustling up the people and kind of jostling someone, creating a little bit of a bit of congestion around Dupont, that when he is trying to pick out the ball, that maybe there's a foot going back in his direction, and just things that are slowing him down ever so slightly. But as you said, there is a huge risk to committing too many bodies in there, because it leaves you a little bit exposed outside. And when you look at what France have with Virimi Vakatawa, it's like he was beating defenders for fun in the Champions Cup. I think he'd like more than 20 defenders beaten than the next player in the top list in the Champions Cup. Like, he's absolutely lethal. So there is a bit of risk reward to it.
One of the key takeaways from the Italy game was that we didn't kick the ball, but it was the Italy game, and so therefore it's impossible to know if that's actually a pattern or if that was because we were so dominant against a side that really looked like one of the worst Italian sides we've seen in a long time. Great performance from Ireland, great to get the cobwebs out, but let's put it in context. So this week, how often will we kick and how we kick is going to be something that we're all very, very keen to see. Like, if we could fast forward and if someone told you how often we kicked, would you be able to tell whether or not we've won or lost the game from that?
Not necessarily, because I think it also kind of comes down to what you actually do with the kicks then as well when you have them. Like, we see it with Munster quite a lot. I do think we are going to see Ireland kicking a hell of a lot more than they did on Saturday, particularly with box kicking. I think we're probably going to see Conor Murray box kicked twice, I think, on last Saturday. We're going to see a lot more of that, I would say, this weekend, because it's the kind of game where it actually probably is going to be needed. I think this is going to be a game where it kind of links on from where I say Ireland have to control the pace, and part of that as well is, controlling the territory and putting those kicks into dangerous areas, and also making sure they're accurate. Because I think one thing Ireland did in the first half of the game against Italy last Saturday, particularly the back three more than anything of Stockdale, Hugo Keenan and Andrew Conway, I think there was a lot of aimless kicking from them. A lot of kicks that, they're trying to put up into the air and, get a good chase on. And there were actually quite a few of them, I thought, in the first half that just went way too long, that were drifting back way towards the 22. I think Stockdale even got lucky with one where he completely kind of miscued it and got the look of the bounce and it went out. I think if Ireland are kicking loose towards the 22 to France, when you've got, I don't know, is it going to be Anthony Bouthier if he's past fit? It could be, if it's not him, like Thomas Ramos of Toulouse, who's going to be at full back, and he's going to run the ball back to you all day. And like, I know Teddy Thomas is out as well, but France have those players that if you kick loose to them, they're going to punish you immensely. So I think we're going to see Ireland box kicking a lot more, because we know Conor Murray is going to be able to control the pace of that, and he's quite good at controlling the length. And the kick chase then has to be hugely, hugely important, and it has to be really, really accurate to put France under the pressure. That, we're creating sloppy ball for them, and you're forcing them into making small little mistakes. And if you're doing that, you can control the pace of the game and you can control the possession of the game.
Okay. One of the other things that we need to talk about is the discipline that Ireland have, and this is about not straying offside. This is about not committing too many people to the rucks, as we've already spoken about, but not giving away penalties and just being defensively disciplined. Unbelievably important this weekend.
Yeah, and I think mainly for the fact that you've got someone like Vakatawa in standing right opposite you at number 13, and I think that's where I presume Robbie Henshaw and Bundy Aki are going to have absolutely huge games, or will have to have huge games, because that was one area France looked absolutely fantastic at the other day, was the fact that Vakatawa was so good, and he was, he's able to bring players like Teddy Thomas into the game. But one thing then I think as well, I think Conor Murray defensively is going to have to be really, really alert, because I think he probably has to be a bit of a tracker for Antoine Dupont. because Dupont is this kind of a player. He seems to play almost like in attack. At times, there's an element that he's like an open side flanker, where every time someone makes a break, he seems to be the first player that's popping up on their shoulder, ready for the pass, or ready for the grubber kick through, or ready for the little offload. And I think every time there's a line break, I think someone has to be wary of where is Dupont, while at the same time not forgetting about the guy that actually has the ball and has made the line break, and bringing him down to the ground. So I think there really has to be. We talk about heads up rugby, and I think most of the time when we mention that, we speak about heads up rugby in attack and playing what's in front of you, and talk about offloads and stuff. But I think there has to be heads up rugby in defence, that anytime things get a little bit loose, you have to have a half an eye and kind of in your peripheral vision of where are the danger men here, and just keeping an eye on them as the break develops and as the play develops.
Yeah, Dupont is literally the most exciting player in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, and we need to do something special to try and prevent him from getting a head up. The last 2 points are beat bastards and what are we going to do with the bench. Explain the being bastards bit.
I think, to be honest, this is the one little point I have where this is how Ireland can get that extra advantage to maybe get the bonus points. This is where I was getting a little bit adventurous. It's probably a bit more trivial of a point, but just be bad. They're going to have to play on the edge of the game, probably wind up the French players. Like the one I mentioned in my pointers, like, we don't know the French team yet. He started at the weekend, Mohamed Hawass, and he's a guy, for example, that has a temper. He can be wound up very, very easily. The last Six Nations game that France played against Scotland, I think it might have actually been his first test start. Could be 100% certain, but he was red carded in the first half of that game for one of the most mindless pieces of retaliation we've seen in the last few years. And he is a player who can be got at. He's a player who can be wound up. So I think, like, France conceded a lot of penalties against Wales last weekend. They have a similar jackal threat as Ireland do, but they just didn't get in the right side of the referees. So I think if France are starting to concede some penalties, wind them up, get in their faces a little bit,
Yeah, 100%. What's your bench makeup?
You rattled them. It's exactly what Scotland did last March when they got the win against France. So be bad.
Yeah, and look, the exciting 9 and 10 are still kids, so there is like a learning curve for them to get through before they become completely unimpeachable as, again, some of the most exciting 9-10 combination play that we're hopefully ever going to see. This French team looks so brilliant and so set up to be
bad guys.
Let's make that our national characteristic when it comes to sport. I am all for that. What's next? The bench. What's your split? What would you do?
I think I'd just about be going towards 5-3, having an extra back on the bench. And to be honest, I'd say, like, I would be leaning towards having Chris Farrell on the bench. And I heard John going through his roundup there when he was talking about how it's looking like between Chris Farrell or Keith Earls could be the options for an extra back on the bench. I think I'd be looking at Chris Farrell, because I'm just looking at Veremi Vakatawa, and I just think how busy the likes of Bondiaki and Robbie Henshaw are going to be. And I think if you are putting Earls in there, there's a strong likelihood at that stage that you're probably telling Bondiaki and Robbie Henshaw you need 80 minutes out of both of them. And it's also telling France that we need 80 minutes out of Bondiaki and Robbie Henshaw as well. So I think all of a sudden it opens up a target and that France can be attacking. And if Ireland were to be getting an injury into one of those centres early on, they're pretty much goosed after that, I think. So I think the bench is something they have to worry about. And also as well then, like, if you are going 5-3, it means that, you don't have that extra jackling option off the bench of, having an extra back row forward, like squeezing in Josh van der Fleer and Peter O'Mahony or someone like that to really get as many ball winners out on the pitch as possible. So there's risk reward to all that. I would just be leaning towards 5-3 though, with Chris Farrell on the bench.
All right, a tight 5. Neil, good stuff. Thanks very much for that.